Hi guys. A little while ago when I was doing my power in Tekkit videos, I did a sort of cutaway insert of some music that I did in Tekkit using ComputerCraft. That just sort of when I was doing a time lapse. Now that uses some things that I've also put in other videos, which is to use a label or a key within tables so you can refer to something directly. And I thought I'd show how that kind of works with the music because I personally think it's kind of cool. So I just thought I would show you that. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you about 30 seconds of song that I've done. So let me quickly do this. So I'm hoping that anyone who's a Doctor Who fan recognised that. It's I Am the Doctor from Matt Smith. It's not a very good version. I want to point that out now. But I thought it was a kind of good demonstration of what you can do with the music. And that is by no means the entire of the song. I would admit here that I kind of gave up on finishing up that song because the original composition and all the other ones, they use sort of long drawn out notes, and yeah, you can't really do that in Minecraft. But there's things like I've seen people do things like the Final Fantasy battle theme music, which is kind of cool. Didn't want to rip it off. Um, so the way you do this is relatively simple once you get your head around it. So if I go into edit music here, so what I've got is for each set of notes for each type of instrument, so we've got the bass, we've got the piano, I've got a direction for that and a value for each note. So what we can see here is the key that we're using. So if I look at this one here, so for the key for F sharp, the first F sharp, and Minecraft notes go from F sharp through to two F sharps up. So it goes F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, all the way through. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll see in here. So the key for this F sharp has a direction of left, so that's the bundled cable that it's going to be using, and it also has a value of 1. G is to the left, it has a value of 2. If we go through here, it's going to be a little bit glitchy here because I'm recording. Okay, so and then we've got G sharp left. G sharp's value is 4, and this goes all the way through. And once you get to the end of the bundled cable numbers, you have to sort of use a new cable. So this has got a different direction on it. So if you look down here on the base, it's got right for these values down here. I'm just going to go to the end here. You should so 256, 512. These are all binary numbers, which defines the color with bundled output. So actually, we get to the end of those binary colors and we go to 1 again. So you've got down, which is D for down in this one. So the way all of that works is if I go to the home here, so each note is defined by a key within a table. So I have actually got 4 sets of instruments here. This bass X, ignore that. I don't actually use that. So note 1 and note 2 are piano notes, and bass 1 and bass 2 are obviously bass notes. What all this works by is a simple for loop that goes through and it pulls out things in order. So as you can see, what I've done is that, and I've actually written out the notes, is I've put a 0 where I don't want anything played by that, and that way I can keep it all in line. So it looks a bit like a note sheet, kind of almost, if you're really weird like me and thinking that way. Okay, so you go through, as you can see, all of the notes that are used are in there. Once again, please do ignore that base X. I probably should delete that. So, and then I set all of the outputs to 0 to start with. That score position, once again, so all of this is part of a monitor that I wanted to do to show what's coming up, but that just sort of makes it a bit too much to do in this video. So all I've got here is for I equals 1, note 1. So what this line here for the hash symbol, then note 1, is that says to the length of note 1. So note 1 is the length of our song. This is what it takes it all off of. What we do is we set everything to 0. So there's an important point to remember here, and that is this os.sleep command. Now that just stops the computer for whatever amount of time that you do there. It does have a minimum that it has to be, which is like 1 tick, which I think is 0.05 a second or 20th a second. The thing is if you take this sleep command out, what happens is it goes way too fast. So I'm just going to quickly just do this, and we'll just play music real quick. Yeah, that's not nice. That's not enjoyable. So this os.sleep command works kind of well, because if you take it at 0.1 second and then you take into account the time that it takes to go through and do all this coding, it roughly works out as each note is about 1/8 of a second, roughly. I mean, that's not exact, and it does change with the amount of notes that you have, because if you think this has got to go through, okay, well, if you've only got one instrument you're using, one set of notes, well, you need to look up the direction, add the number to the bundled output, set the output. If you've got two, well, you've got to find a direction, set the output, find a direction, set the output, set the output, set the output. Potentially. If you've got three, fine. Yeah, I won't carry on. So the way you actually find out what you're going to be doing as a bundled output is that you pull out the key for the number that I is at. So for example, if I equals 1, well, we're going to pull out the first note here. So if we look up here, well, the first note is D. So we're going to find what key that relates to in our values. We know that note 1 is only going to be our standard lookup directions. This is kind of the piano lookup directions here. So if we go through, okay, so note 1, well, let's find the key for just D. Well, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. Okay, so we've got D. So the lookup, wow, I scrolled too much. So with all that scrolling averted, we have got our two keys that we can see here. So this down here is our values, and this is our directions. So our first note is going to be D. So when we find that D in our lookup direction, well, it's going to be L. And then if we find the value of that, it's going to be 256. Now, next note that we find in there is going to be E. So if we go along here a little bit, E has got a direction of L, and it's got a value of 1024. And then, as you can see, but this repeat of notes kind of goes all the way through what I did there. And then we find F2. F2 is direction of L. F2 has a value of 2048. But when we get to A2, well, not A2, A sharp 2, well, we've got to the end of the numbers we can do on the bundled output. So we then start using the back, and we use the value of 1. So that is what these two lines here do. So what we do is we go, okay, because we don't set the keys for our notes, they just go incrementally. So I is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with this for loop to the end of whatever note 1 is. When it's equal to 1, well, when we pull out what that value is, it's D. Okay, so that lookup direction, find the key that is equal to D, and we know that's equal to L, it's not B. And then what we do is we set it to 0, whatever the current total of left bundled is, we add that value that we find for that same key in lookup value. So later on, we might have a note that is A sharp 2 or further on, so maybe I is equal to, I don't know, 9,000. No, it's over 9,000. 9,001. So I is equal to 9,001, and we find that that's A sharp 2. Well, when we pull out lookup direction, well, we find that it's actually B, so that's going to be our back bundled. as you can see here. And then we add in the value of back bundled to lookup value. So we'll do that same again. So we'll find out, okay, what is in note at 9001, and that would be A#2. Okay, use that in a key for lookup value, and then we would add lookup value to whatever the bundled is. And we do that for all of them essentially. So for every direction they can be, it's done. So the 2 pianos can be left or back, and the 2 basses can be right or down. And that is what we're doing in all of that. I'm actually going to build something. We'll do a song like London Bridge is Falling Down. And I'll actually build that so you can see how it works and maybe extend it out for whatever you want to do. Because this is quite a big setup. This uses all the notes of the piano and all the notes of the bass. So yeah, I'll go in and show that now. To set up an example of this, to sort of cement the ideas and show exactly how this works, because I'm aware that I'm sometimes terrible at explaining this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a program that plays London Bridge is Falling Down. And we're not going to use many notes for that. I believe it uses C through to A. That's not what I wanted to do. Right, so let's place these blocks down here. So we're going to need some Rednet cable coming out. This should be more than enough here. All right, there we go. Now you do need to have your note blocks at least a distance of 1 between each other. Otherwise, the signal will carry through. Now you can get the information for how many times you need to hit these note blocks. We used to right click them for them to come out of it. So C needs 6, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then D needs 8, E needs 10, F11, G13 and A15. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so these blocks are now set as C, D, E, F, G and A. Now I need to give each of these a bundled colour. So that's white, that's orange. So the bundled output for this would be 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 and 32. So that would be the different numbers and the values we need to put out there. So we don't need to give a direction, but I'm going to put one in there so you can see how this works. So let's right click on this. Didn't we do that? Okay, edit, example, we'll call this. Wow, I really can't spell. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to set it up exactly like the other one. We're going to have a lookup direction and a lookup value. So we'll go local lookup direction equals, and we'll do this, local lookup value, get a table, and we'll do local tune. We won't having that, it's equal to this. And the final thing is local bundled output. There we go. Right, so now we need to set up the keys for each thing. So we're going to say, well, we need a key for C, D, E, F, G and A. So C is equal to left. D, wow, I really can't type, is equal to left. It's all going to be left. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of the keys here. Right, so here is the keys for the direction we're going to go in. They're all going to the left. We've got C, the key of C, it's in the reference key, C is equal to left, D, E, F2. Now I've used F2 just because that's the same thing I use in the other one, and that is the second F in the scale that you can have on Minecraft, the second G and the second A. Now I need to do the same thing for the values and use our bundled output values. So we would go, okay, C, well that's our first one, that's our white value we're putting out, is equal to 1. And then the next one is orange, so which is D, and that is equal to 2. E is equal to 4, remember these are binary numbers. F2 is 8. G2 is 16. and A2 is 32. Now the next thing we need to do is put in the actual tune. So 1 second. Okay, I needed to go and check what the actual tune was because it's been a very long time since I did that in these sort of music classes. So I'm hoping this is going to turn out okay. So what we need to do is go G, G2, and then we need a pause. And it's going to be A2. Oops, helps me put the comma in the right place. G2. So da da da, and then is falling down. So that's, we need a space. We need a, I don't know why I'm doing a space there. We need a pause and then F2. Pause. E. Pause. F2. Pause. G2. So that is going to be da 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 da. I cannot sing. I do apologise for you hearing me doing that. Is yeah, I am very sorry. Right, then we need D E F. So it'd be D E F. Two pauses again. Now you've got to remember, you think of this in notes. The pause is a note that's not played. And then E, F, G. Another pause. Then repeat again. So London Bridge is falling down. Pause. A2. Oh, I haven't done the G right, have I? I haven't done the F or the G right. Okay, so we need to make sure we put a 2 in there, 2 in there, 2 in there, 2 in there. Okay. 2, G2, pause, F2, pause, E, F2, G2, pause, pause, D, pause, pause, G2, pause, pause, E, and then C. Right, so this should be, when we put this together, London Bridge is falling down. It may turn out terribly. So the final thing we need to do is then set our for loop. So let's go to the end here. So for I is equal to 1 to the length of the table of tune, do, end. Okay. If look up direction, so I want to find the key for that. So what is in tune? Tune, find our key of I. So whatever I is, we find that in tune and see if it's got a key in lookup direction is equal to left. Then let's do an end statement here. Now we are going to have obviously left, so I'm not going to do the rest of the statements, but if that's that, then bundled output. Now we've got something here. My bad. Bundled output equals 0 os.sleep. Now I'm going to set this to 0.2 because we're dealing with quite slow notes here. Bundled output. Yep. Bundled output is equal to bundled output plus. Now we find out our value. So look up value. Can't spell to save my life. So we find what is the key we're looking for. So we find out tune I. Right, there we go. Now final thing is set out bundled output. So redstone.set bundled output left, set it to bundled output. I very, very much doubt this is going to work first time, but let's try it. What did I call this? Okay. Hey! Woo! Right, so there you go. You've just seen the basic example of how that would work. Yeah, I'm seriously surprised that worked first time. Yeah, blown away. Anyway, so that is how you would put all this together. So if we just go into edit example and do a recap, we've got create the keys for the direction they're going to go into, create the keys for the value of that each note in that direction, and then we put out our tune into however many tables we want. And for each item that we have here, we have our one tune or our one table that controls the entire length of the for loop. We set all of our outputs to 0 at the start of every loop. We do a little sleep, and then we do lookup direction here. So we look up the direction for that number of that table, of that instrument table, and we add that to the output for that direction it should be. So if you look at the other one that I did, so else if, it would be, okay, look up direction tune I. So say we had another direction which was right, then yeah. So that's kind of what it would do, and then you'd do that for each one. So if we had tune 2, tune 3, tune 4, we would do this whole chunk of code here for each of those. Anyway, guys, I hope that was useful, and I hope it gives you ideas what to do. And yeah, I'm just gonna let the tune speak for itself.